What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the hater, up in this piece. And I wanted to do a quick video that stems from my Randy Orton video. This video is about legends. You know, it's really quite simple. Wrestling needs legends. When I say legends, I'm talking about real legends. I'm not talking about make-believe legends like Chavo Guerrero. Remember when Chavo Guerrero appeared one time randomly on TNA and he was like part of like a tag team with Hernandez all of a sudden? And Chavo's like, he just gets the mic and he's like, "You guys think I'm a legend?" And everyone cheered because that's what they're supposed to do. And it's like, everyone simultaneously in the world that saw that thought, no, we think you're insecure, and we know you know that you're not good enough to be a legend. We know, Chavo Guerrero knows deep inside that he's nowhere near as good as Eddie Guerrero, or Rey Mysterio, or even Psychosis, or anybody else that he associated himself with. You see what I'm saying? He's just not good. That Chavo Guerrero is a solid hand, but he's a jobber, motherfucks. So when I say legend, I'm talking Undertaker, Kane, Stone Cold, The Rock, Mankind, Shawn Michaels, you know what I mean? Triple H to a lesser degree. I'm talking about these guys that are larger than life. Now, the way that wrestling works, generally speaking, is you start at the bottom one way or another, and you must work your way up to the top. There are exceptions, and the exceptions are notable, because they are exceptions, right? And therefore, they are exceptional people. I'm talking your Kurt Angles, your Brock Lesnar's, you know what I mean? People that are like that are like, holy shit, this guy's just so amazing that I can't deny him, right? The Rock didn't spend any time on the indies. He went to WWE. He had a jobber-ass gimmick in the beginning, but quickly thereafter, right, he became The Rock. The first chance he had to do anything, he became The Rock, right? There are people that have to toil away in the indies, you know, including some great guys, but a lot of them are jobbers. A legend must be made. A legend must be made in kayfabe, and a legend must be made through hard work. Legends, unlike other elements and facets of wrestling, cannot be gaslit into existence, right? For example, let's say tomorrow Seth Rollins doesn't like show up to work, right? And let's just say he quits unceremoniously and he comes back 10 years later, just like Brock Lesnar, let's say, right? Or Stone Cold or somebody else, right? The music will hit, people will lose their minds, but then I believe personally that nobody's gonna really give a shit because Seth Rollins sucks. He's boring, and he's not a legend, right? And in my opinion, he never will be a legend because he doesn't do anything entertaining, right? Now, if you take, for example, The Miz or Kofi Kingston or these types of guys, I would argue that their impact had the potential to make them into legends, right? Because these guys have been around for a long time, far longer than Seth Rollins, and they've accomplished about the same thing, right? Yeah, Seth Rollins may have had a few more title runs, but who cares? It doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? Like, The Miz, obviously the most accomplished of all three of them, has main evented WrestleMania. Oh, but hater, Seth Rollins main evented night one. Night one doesn't count, all right? Simple as that. And then Daniel Bryan has won the world title at WrestleMania, right? Which is pretty impressive. Kofi Kingston won it from Daniel Bryan, I should say. So these guys, this is the next crop of people that should be legends, right? This crop is led, of course, by Randy Orton. The people that were around early in the Ruthless Aggression era or right after, right? You know, these people should now be elevated in the card, right? During the Attitude Era, we had plenty of people that were not in the direct main event scene, but that could be plugged in to any main event of a pay-per-view and nobody would bat an eyelash. We used to call these people upper midcarders. Now, we don't have any more upper midcarders. Let me explain. On a random-ass pay-per-view, let's say, during the Attitude Era, you might see a match third or fourth on the card, and it would be something like, let's say, Mick Foley versus Kane, right? Now, this match would be awesome because both of those guys are awesome, and you knew that this match had no actual stakes, right? Like, it's not for the number one contender, it's not for anything. It's just a match between two guys that are legit, and you want to know which one of these guys is going to come out on top because tomorrow, one of these guys might be the next number one contender, right? Chances are within that year, both of those guys are going to get a title shot one way or another, right? So there's an inherent interest. But what else happens is that now, since they're fighting each other, Kane and Mick Foley separate themselves from the rest of the roster into a specific niche of the upper mid-carder. In other words, if tomorrow Kane is challenged by Steve Blackman or Val Venus or Bull Buchanan or Big Boss Man or The Godfather or D'Lo Brown, you know what I mean? Or Owen Hart back in the day, the implications are that Kane would destroy these guys in under 3 minutes, right? Because he's still Kane. Same thing with Mick Foley. Mick Foley would destroy like Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, like 2-on-1, boom, pile driver, stack him and pin him, right? Because he is an upper mid-carder. This is the status that the likes of Kofi Kingston and The Miz should employ right now. There is no universe in which The Miz and Kofi Kingston should exist and wrestle people like Nakamura in 50-50 matches. The Miz is a WrestleMania main eventer. Nakamura is a pre-show guy. The match should go like this. The Miz gets in the ring. Nakamura comes in dancing like Michael Jackson. Miz kicks him in the knee, does a little kneeling DDT thing, skull-crushing finale, 1, 2, 3. That should be the match, right? It's important that wrestlers maintain the hierarchy so that one day we can have legends, right? And then wrestlers like The Miz and Kofi Kingston can have competitive matches with one another at pay-per-views, right? That's how you make people into stars. And then you could throw in other people in there like Randy Orton, things like that, right? Randy Orton has no business of losing to Logan Paul. You know what I mean? Randy Orton has no business feuding with Kevin Owens. Randy Orton should be feuding with his equals. And very, very rarely, right? If you keep, let's say, Kofi Kingston and The Miz segregated with Randy Orton and a few others like them, right? You keep them segregated from the roster and you put them in this Kane and Mick Foley type slot, then the time comes when you find yourself with someone special, right? The best example of this is Randy Orton himself, right? Randy Orton and Edge were people that were special and they were going to get massive pushes. So what do? Well, both of them had to go through Mick Foley, right? Now, Randy Orton and Edge, being these young guys beating Mick Foley, was something that people could see coming. But Mick Foley put these assholes over by having incredible matches with them both and letting them pin him. You see what I'm saying? This is a big deal. Because now no one can do that for anybody else. Randy Orton cannot put over Kevin Owens, right? Because Randy Orton is no longer over in that sense. Randy Orton is now a mid-carder. Mick Foley, even when he wrestled like, Edge, or when he wrestled fucking Orton, even though he was technically retired, he was still considered like an upper mid-card guy, right? He was a guy that you never knew. Next year, WrestleMania, it could be Mick Foley for the world title, right? This is how things used to work. And it's not just Miz and Kofi. I'm using them as examples. You have Sheamus. There's other people that would fit into this paradigm, right? People that were there that like put in the work during this time, and that now you can have them wrestle each other, but Sheamus versus Pete Dunne should be like 30-second squash match. Like Sheamus versus Pete Dunne should be the match starts, Sheamus bro kicks him, picks him up, high cross, pins him with a foot. That's what should happen. You see what I'm saying? Legends, and this is part, I'm not going to blame it on Sheamus and Randy Orton and things like that, but people need to protect their status, right? Sheamus, Kofi Kingston, Miz, and Orton know with certainty that, especially Orton, but even the other guys, they know that they are guaranteed Hall of Famers, right? And here's how you know that they're awesome. Imagine if all 4 of these guys get fired tomorrow for whatever reason, and you don't hear about it for 10 years. And then 10 years later, you hear like, SOS, you know what I'm saying? You're like, holy shit, is that what I think it is? And then you hear the Kofi Kingston theme song, and you just mark out, you get out of your seat, you're like, holy shit. You tell your son, let's say you have a son next year, now your son's like 8 or 9, and you're like, boy, look at this. This is Kofi Kingston. This is like one of my favorite wrestlers, you'd say, when I was a kid, right? Even though he probably wasn't. But you would remember him fondly because he's someone that's awesome. You're not going to feel the same way about Kevin Owens. You know what I mean? You're not going to feel the same way even about Seth Rollins. Unless Seth Rollins does it for another 10 years, which he might, right? You're not going to feel the same way about them because these guys never wrestle. Kofi Kingston was out there week in and week out, having basically 2 Hall of Fame careers. You know what I'm saying? But the point I'm trying to make is this. To elevate yourself to that status, right, you also need to be treated like you're a big deal. Kofi Kingston and The Miz, it wouldn't be shocking if nobody had that reaction, right? Because they're not treated that way. They're treated like jobbers. Same thing with Sheamus. He's treated like a jobber. You have people like, wait a second, like Drew McIntyre is beating up Sheamus. What the fuck? How about when you had them in their primes? Sheamus was whooping his ass. Sheamus would beat like the entire 3 and be by himself. Why didn't you see it then, right? Come on, get the fuck out of here. You have to protect your legends. And by protecting your main eventers, you can then have a chance of converting into legends. So that tomorrow, let's just say Trick Williams becomes the massive star that he's not going to be, but that everyone thinks he's going to be. right? And Trick Williams is like, I've beaten everybody. I'm the WWE champion. Let's say this is like in 10 years, right? I mean, 10 years he'll be like in his 40s, so it's not gonna happen. But let's just play fantasy, right? And then Orton's music hits, right? Now you're like, oh shit, that's it. Trick Williams is cool, but he's not fucking Randy Orton, right? This works if Randy Orton is a winner today. If today Randy Orton can't beat Kevin Owens, then it's like, why the fuck can't Trick Williams 10 years from now beat him? Or let's say Braun Breaker, right? Why can't Braun Breaker in 10 years, who he'll be like in his prime, he'll be like in his mid 30s, like if Braun Breaker's the champion in 10 years, and then Orton comes out, you're like, oh, okay, like this is compelling, but if Orton has gotten his ass beat by Tozawa yesterday, then it's like, oh, last time I saw him, he was losing to Tozawa. I don't exactly see how this corresponds, right? Oh, he was good at one point, doesn't matter. You have to be good consistently. This is what happened with Undertaker. People were like, oh, Bray Wyatt should squash the Undertaker at WrestleMania. Have you lost your mind? You want me and other people to have Undertaker ruined for us because you think that Bray Wyatt is going to be a legend? Bray Wyatt sucks. Rest in peace, but it is what it is, you know? Absolutely not. And Vince McMahon was like, no. Bray Wyatt's not good enough for us to bury someone to put him over, right? He's just not, right? He's not like, it's not like when Randy Orton, for example, RKO'd Jake the Snake in the middle of the ring, right? Jake the Snake is a jobber and Randy Orton is the future. So the distance is more achievable, right? And I'll conclude with this. One of the biggest jobbers of all time is Billy Kidman. Now, I enjoyed Billy Kidman when I was a kid because I thought he had like an interesting name, to be honest. Billy Kidman. It just sounds cool, right? And Billy Kidman did the Shooting Star Press. I didn't know anybody else could do it back then. So I thought it was like unique to him, but he had like the worst one ever. But anyways, Billy Kidman, in the dying days of WCW, was in a feud with none other than Hulk Hogan. And fans back then, in the early days of the internet, were clamoring that Billy Kidman should beat Hulk Hogan clean. I remember this. So don't worry, guys. The neckbeards of today are not the worst ones, and they're not the first ones. Not the worst, not the first. And then people were like, what? Have you lost your mind? And when I say people, I also include the Hulkster himself. Hulk Hogan was like, what? You want me to lose to Billy Kidman? Have you lost your fucking mind? I'm Hulk Hogan. That's Billy Kidman. In 10 years, Hulkamania will still run wild. And in 10 years, Billy Kidman will be doing absolutely nothing with his life. That's exactly what happened, right? A few years later, you might see like a match. You might see, let's say the WrestleMania where The Rock and Hogan had their epic match, right? Let's say in the pre-show of that, you had Jamie Noble versus Billy Kidman for the Cruiserweight title or for nothing at all. It's just a bullshit match. And then now I'm supposed to believe that the Cruiserweight jobber that has trouble beating or even losing to Jamie Noble, that this guy, this same Billy Kidman who now cut his hair, beat Hulk Hogan? And then now, by the transitive property, I'm supposed to believe that Hulk Hogan, who couldn't beat the pre-show jobber, has a chance against The Rock? Have you lost your minds? Right? Hulk Hogan understood this very, very well, and he was like, no, I'm not taking the fall for Billy Kidman on the off chance that Billy Kidman has a good career. No, absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely not. It's not happening, right? And that protection is what then led to Hulk Hogan coming in, having the moment with The Rock, which was amazing, of course, and then eventually Hulk Hogan putting over people like, I hate to say it, but it's true, putting over Shawn Michaels in his 40s. Hogan versus Michaels, right? You could argue that Michaels put over Hogan, but you know what I mean, right? Hogan and Michaels. You have that moment because he refused to turn into a jobber and have Disco Inferno beat him. You know what I mean? Have you lost your minds? And as a result, you had Orton versus Hogan, a bona fide legend versus the up-and-coming legend killer. And then you look at Orton, and you look at Disco Inferno, and you look at Billy Kidman, and you're like, Orton is clearly a star, and these two aren't. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure they're nice guys. But Orton was the guy that was going to make it. So you save his ass, you save Hogan for Orton, right? You save Vince McMahon getting punted in the head, like the first time he got his ass really beat since Stone Cold, for Orton to do, right? You don't just have like Tyson Tomko come out there and just punch Vince McMahon and hope for the best. Or maybe Tomko and Snitsky can be stars. No, you saved your moment. But in order to do this, you have to create that aura. You have to create that mark of invincibility where someone feels like a big deal. If they don't feel like a big deal, then you're fucked. And that's where we find ourselves now. Fucked, right? There are no stars and there are no prospects for any legends. aside from Orton, Orton is just too big to not be a legend because he's Orton. But even if he has like 5 more years, like of wrestling, and these 5 years are just him losing to like fucking, Nathan Frazier and shit like that, like then that's just, you're just ruining it. You might as well just quit now. Just have him quit now and have him just have like, I don't know, 1 match a year at Bad Blood. It's like the Orton pay-per-view. Yeah, people just challenge Orton at like Bad Blood or something. That's more compelling than him losing matches on TV to like Axiom, But you see what I'm getting at, Cugs. You see what I'm getting at. Pin this.